Hey, good evening, folks. This is the Spaceman here at ConGregate, and I'm sitting down with author Jim Nettles. Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit what brings you to ConGregate?
I didn't have a choice. Oh, no. James and Tara said I had to be here. No, that's not exact. I am here because this is a lovely event and convention that is always fun to do. You get to mix, mingle, and hang out with a very small crowd of geeks that love books and film and love fandom. I mean, this is some of my favorite people here. I mean, I do a lot of conventions every year, but I'm always happy when I can come to ConGregate because I frequently have a competing event. But I've been able to do it 2 years in a row, and I'm here getting to run my mouth a whole lot. We just did a show with John Hartness and, of course, guest of honor. What's his name again? Oh, yeah, John Scalzi, that guy, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the red shirts guy.
The red shirts guy, yeah. Yeah, it's always fun to get to do something with one of your favorite authors.
So what's this book you've got in front of you?
That happens to be the shameless plug for Business for Writers, Business Essentials for Writers. So I write kind of some of everything, right? I write science fiction, fantasy, horror. I've written contemporary, a bunch of stuff. I write a lot of nonfiction, privacy, data security, business, all sorts of stuff. And I was just telling the story out in the hallway of a number of years ago. I was at a convention with a friend of mine that she came and said, "So you're one of those weird like business techie people, right?" Now in the business world, they go, "You're one of those weird creative sort of people, right?" Which means I don't belong in either world,
right?
Which is fine with me. But she says, "Can I ask a question?" I said, "Sure." She asked a question. I don't remember what it was. And I went and I said, "Well, da-da-da." I started going into the usual consultant speak and laid it out. She looked at me and cocked her head and said, "Darling, all of that sound awfully important, and I have no idea what the hell you just said." And for a lot of the stuff I was writing at the time and whatnot, if I was doing an article on certain things in business and whatnot, I started just developing it for the publisher community as well, and the writing community and the creative community, as well as some of the other places I do and teach workshops. And over time, it just wound up accumulating into a big site and a big collection that I then curated down to with the help of a lot of friends in this community. This book, there's a couple of more there's a more advanced version, advanced topics, advanced ideas coming about it. There's a couple of more in the series behind it, as well as I do a bunch of workshops on it. Because again, I have a firm belief that if you're a creative and you wish to make money and profit from bringing new things into the world, you should have a right to actually profit from it. And
amen. Creator's got to create, but a creator got to get paid.
Well, yes, absolutely. If you want to give it away for free, great, but that's not being a professional. I mean,
right.
Because again, if you don't value your work, nobody else is either. And this is one of those things that I think gets lost a lot, is I see a lot of people that are just like, "I want my work out there. I just please want someone to see it. Please, please, may they see my work." And I appreciate that. We've all been in that position at some point in time. But the other part of that is human nature. Something that's given to us for free, we don't value.
Right.
And if I also face the fact that bringing a book to market costs thousands of dollars potentially, I don't get a chance to complain about I'm broke and I can't do another book if I'm not charging enough so I can have the books at least pay for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Doing events and conventions is an expensive thing to do. It's a lot of time. It can be a lot of money and resources. I do a lot of them every year. And, there's at least got to be a way to pay for itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, a lot of the creators that we've talked to have difficulty with the business side of the creative process. And we've had a couple of people express to us that you have to embrace that. You have to embrace the business, because whatever you do, even if you're doing it as a hobby, you have to treat it systematically. And I'm glad that somebody is taking that from point of view from industry and bringing it into the writing craft.
So the moment money becomes involved, you have a business. Now, if you're just willing to shell out the money to bring something into the world, that's great. Do that for yourself. The second, though, that you want to have a dollar come into you, you have a business. The IRS says so.
Right.
And at that point, if you don't start to treat it like a business and you don't do all of the moving parts, then success is much harder to achieve. I mean, there is a component here where in any business, luck is a component, right?
Right.
But at the same time, if you treat something like a business, you understand those operating principles and you're willing to operate that way and willing to go and say, I am going to be acting as a creator for this point in time, right? I am putting on my creator hat. I am bringing new babies into the world. It's mine. I'm going to cradle it. It's here. Joy, or if you're writing horror, existential screams. Whatever it is that floats your boat, you bring that in and you're bringing that to the world, right?
Right.
And then you have to take off that hat. If you are traditionally published, and I've got stuff that's traditionally published, then it boils down to working with your editors and publishers to turn that into something that is commercial. If you're going the indie route, then you're even doubly screwed. You have to take off that creator hat, put it aside and say, yes, I recognize this is my baby. Now I have to be the publisher. I have to say, am I willing to put the money into this to make it viable? Am I willing to do the work and pour in the money to get a good cover, to get good editing, to get all the things that have to happen? And that's just before you even start to market it.
Right.
And if you don't take that approach, you can burn a lot of money and come out of the back end of it without anything to show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Jim, how did you get started as a writer?
When I was in high school, all right, first time I actually go back. My mother was an English teacher. My mother was an English teacher. I grew up in small business and I grew up in politics. Dad did a lot of speech writing. He did a lot of campaign management, ran a business, all this kind of stuff. When I was in high school, because I liked to be a photographer, I played with writing. I had tried fiction. I thought I sucked. All the things that all creators do. We go, I have written this. This shall never see the light of day. Bring the cleansing fire upon the piece of paper so that no one may ever discover this, right? And I started as a photographer. I love to take pictures. I love images and everything else. And I worked for the paper. I worked for the yearbook. I did all that kind of stuff. Go to college. And a friend of mine was like, yeah, you're a photographer, right? Yep. Great. We need you to, you want to come do some stuff for the paper? Sure. I was 17. I'm like, sure, I'm willing to go be stupid. And I started covering stuff. And along the way, I wound up covering a presidential election. And then I wound up doing a bunch of freelancing. So as a freelance photographer, if you're covering things, the next thing is, yeah, go write the story too. So I started learning to write the story. And I've covered everything from politics. I've covered space. I've covered technology. I've covered historical events. I mean, I interviewed Timothy Leary. I've interviewed astronauts. I've interviewed business owners, ambassadors. And all this is just while I was in college.
Wow.
Business owners. I went to the University of South Carolina back in the days when we still had this massive international program. USC still has one of the best MIBS programs in the country, but we did a lot of stuff. And because if it wasn't a concert or sports, nobody cared. I'm like, I can go stir up trouble and go meet. Sweet, I'm going to go cover it. I can go meet people. I can go shoot pictures. I'll go write the stories. And then, like I say, on top of that, I started freelancing outside of it. And I started trying to write fiction. First piece I sold for fiction, I think I was 19. And it got bought for a little small local anthology sort of thing. And I played with it off and on. And then in my 20s, I started traveling pretty heavily. And fiction sort of slid to the side a lot. I still did a fair amount of nonfic articles, things like this. But white papers, research. But about 15 years ago, I started really kind of getting back into it fairly heavy. I was traveling a lot, and you can only watch so much bad TV. You're stranded in airports, you're stranded wherever. Writing was my way of keeping my sanity.
Right.
And about, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I really sort of brought it back in earnest and started selling work again. And so.
Okay. Well, everybody, we want to thank Jim Nettles for sitting down with us tonight. Jim, thank you for talking to the Halfling and Spaceman, and thank you for coming to ConGregate.
Oh, no, I appreciate you guys having me on. If anybody wants to find out about the stuff we're doing, you can find me at jamespnettles.com. And also, if you enjoy this kind of stuff, we've got the Continual Network. We're always doing programming and stuff there as well. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. This is the Spaceman of the Halfling and the Spaceman podcast, here with streamer Oh Hi Mark.
Hi, folks.
Mark is a personality well known in the gaming community around here. Does gaming, those parties at conventions. What don't you do, Mark?
I don't do Windows.
You don't do Windows.
Don't do Windows.
So you're a Mac guy?
I am a software engineer by day, but I actually do Windows. So I guess I need a better joke. I don't tell jokes.
Apparently not. So how did you get started in fandom?
Oh, that would go back to 8th grade. I had a civics teacher back in Roanoke, Virginia, that was good friends with the guy who started a local convention there called Rovacon. And he gave us extra credit for going to Rovacon. And I went in 8th grade, which was the year, it was when Star Trek The Next Generation was in its first season. If that gives you a little
87?
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was amazing, blew my mind. I went to Rovacon a few times after that, started going to conventions when I was in the military. When I got back home, I started getting more and more into it. Then I started doing things like shadow casting and cosplaying and doing the Twitch stuff and the terrible movie nights and that sort of thing, and started getting invited to come be a guest and be on panels, and here we are.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So, Mark, what brings you to this convention?
The People of Those convention, I've known me for a long time, and James and Tara actually asked me to come to come be on panels and stuff like that, because this is one of the conventions that I go to every year, regardless of whether I'm a guest or not. This is one of my favorite conventions. ConGregate is one of the best run old school small fan conventions left. Things like GalaxyCon and a few other things are starting to morph the market a little bit, but this one has hung on. It's grown over the years. It's super well run, so this is one that I love to come to.
Okay. So, how did you get your start in this crazy world of fandom?
I think the first thing that sort of got me into it was, I don't know if you remember, way back in the 80s, when Star Wars was super big. The Empire Strikes Back had just come out, and people started talking about how many times they had seen Star Wars. And they were talking about viewing numbers in the hundreds, even back in the 80s. And that sort of opened my eyes that there were fandoms. There were people that were super fans. And Star Wars was actually my doorway into fandom. But it was then getting into Rovacon, which was a huge gaming convention, that sort of got me into the door of going to conventions and seeing the cosplayers and seeing the people line up to meet people like Deanna Lund and DeForest Kelly and that sort of thing. That sort of got me into it. I was a bit of a nerd in high school anyway, so it sort of got me in with my people, so to speak, and I started going from there. When I got out of the military and got back, it was one of those easy social groups. You come back and you're immediately part of the group again, and you've got Star Wars and Star Trek and Firefly and Serenity and those sorts of things that are so easy to just sit around and talk about and go to panels and just learn. So it really was the social aspect that brought me into it. And I started going to cons back in the 80s and 90s, and especially in the 90s when I was an adult, where the room parties were just the really where the majority of the socializing. Room parties and hallways is where it's at.
Yes,
in a lot
room
of the
parties and hallways, 100%.
and so that was really what brought me into it was you had the instant social of the military, and then you come back, and even though it's your old hometown, you don't really have a group anymore, and they were a group, so it made the transition easier, and I've been doing it ever since. 20 some years since I got out of the military. So
Sounds fun. Sounds fun. So tell everybody who's listening or watching this on YouTube where they can find out more about Oh Hi Mark.
okay, so the easiest way is my website, ohhighmarkonline.com. It's got links to everything else that I do. It's got my blog on there. It's got my streaming schedule and the things that I do streaming. And then ohhighmark76. Everything's each word is separated by an underscore because you'd be surprised how many Ohio marks there are out there because they are people who are fans of the room.
But only one Spaceman.
Only one Spaceman. And only one Halfling.
That's right.
But Ohio Mark 76 on Twitch, Ohio Mark 4 on Twitter, and like I said, my website. The website's the easiest way. You can also find me at conventions. I've got a swag store and give away swag at a lot of conventions and stuff like that. This is the last one of the year, so I'm out. But yeah, that's the easiest way to find me. ohhighmarkonline.com.
Well, thank you, Mark, for coming on the Halfling and Spaceman podcast.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome. Just sort of sit here and do a commercial for myself. So I look forward to the invitation you extended me to be on your show for a good what is it, an hour show?
Hour long show.
I'm looking forward to that. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, this is a Halfling, and we are at ConGregate in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm talking with Avery. Avery, hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. A little tired, but good.
I mean, me too. It's like 11 o'clock at night, right? It's been a long day.
So tell me, what brings you here to ConGregate?
So I'm at ConGregate because I run a small, brand new, we've only had our first year convention out in Cary, North Carolina. So about 2 hours from here, called Ret-Con.
Okay. Yep, we were there.
Yeah, you guys were there. I know.
We were there.
And we're hoping you'll be there again.
Yeah.
You know?
If y'all will have us, we'll be there.
I'm hoping we'll have you. I leave those decisions up to my programming head, keeping it a little, I could pull my weight if I need to. But
okay.
Try not to. Try to let him make the decisions.
Flex those power muscles. So what have you been up to at the convention?
Well, we had our table for Ret-Con, talked up, networked a lot. I did go to one of Michael's workshops.
Okay.
It was 21 Days to a Novel, because I'm an aspiring writer.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, that's a good, get myself started, figure out some writing exercises, for the writing juices. That was really fun. Obviously, I perused that dealer's room. Mm-hmm. You got to peruse the dealer's room.
Got to.
Enjoyed the opening ceremonies. There were some fun announcements there. Mm-hmm. There was some trauma at the end of it. Core memories were unlocked as John Hartness sung "My Heart Will Go On" to John Scalzi. It's a memory that's in there forever now.
Okay. Well, I was something you said just clicked, and I've lost it. So. We'll move on.
We'll circle back or move on.
We'll maybe circle back, depending on but anyway. So do you have anybody else with you from Ret-Con?
So she did just leave, but my treasurer and social media head, Piper English. Okay. She does a lot of our design work. So we have a mascot character. His name is Crit. It's spelled CRT because he is a TV-headed guy. Very like retro Twilight Zone-y kind of feeling character. So he's got this TV head with a spiral face that we can kind of swap out various, depending on what we need it to say. And that very black suit, Men in Black kind of style design. So she's done a lot of our design. And as much as I hate the word brand, everything's a brand now, right? She's done a lot of our brand work and our design work. But also, make sure our finances are in order.
Yeah.
And then my husband, Xander, is stepped in this year to be our con suite head. So he kind of came in to help with the table as well.
Okay. All right. Well, what was behind the idea of putting on Ret-Con? How did that get started? You're laughing.
So
this is gonna be
I'm
a
laughing
story.
because it happened at ConGregate.
Oh, really?
Yes. So 2 years ago, and it's crazy to me that it's only been 2 years since this idea was hatched. That's how young Ret-Con is. 2 years ago, we came to our first ConGregate after things were reopening, coming out of lockdowns and seeing people again for the first time in what had probably been 2 years.
Yeah.
We came to ConGregate, and as I talked to a lot of the local authors, John Hartness and Patrick Dugan, Jason Gilbert, some of those guys. And I'm in the spaces, and they're like, I used to be the dealer's room head for a con in the same area called a Logicon. And they're all like, Avery, when are you starting a con? And I'm like, I'm not. No way. Absolutely no universe am I starting a con. That's not happening. Then I'd walk by the next one. Avery, when are you starting a con? It's not happening. It's not happening. Like, absolutely not. I've been there. I've done that. Got the t-shirt,
Okay, so we're going to start this convention.
And then literally a week later, I'm filing documentation with the Secretary of State to start my business to run Ret-Con. That's how it happens sometimes. I have my BA in English. I work in finance. I'm not doing anything. Before starting this con, I wasn't doing anything in my field. I'm in a completely different field than I went to school for.
Yeah.
It was time for me to give something back to the community. And the easiest way for me to do that was to start a convention.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, like we were saying before, we were there, and thought it was pretty well done for especially for a first run con. It's not easy. It's really, Spaceman and I did our own convention several years ago, and the amount of help that we had to put it together made all the difference.
Oh yeah, I have a 5-person, well, including myself, I have a 5-person board, and without those 4 other people, Ret-Con would not happen. Would just never be able to get that off the ground. You need a team behind you for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. So, what else are you looking forward to during this convention?
We'll do a little more tabling tomorrow. I'll probably do another run through the dealer's room because why not? Probably do a lot more networking tomorrow because people will be, in that winding down phase. I don't know that I have any panels for sure on my schedule. I'll have to double check. But I always I really, like I said, I always just enjoy listening to writers talk about their process and things like that. So I'm sure if there's something in the paneling tomorrow that is in that line, I'll be there.
Okay. Sounds good. Did you buy anything in the dealership?
I sure did.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Someone was they had a regional small canvases. So she had one that was the moon, like kind of offset with the sky, and it was blacklight reactive, so it glows under a blacklight. And I have a collection at home of a few pieces of uranium glass.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so my plan is to get that in a case with some black lights. So I'll add that piece once I have that going.
Oh.
And then I bought a gift for someone that's in the room, so I can't talk about that.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. Well, listen, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us today, and I hope that you have a great time the rest of the convention, and we look forward to seeing what happens with Ret-Con 2, and look forward to being there.
Well, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today
All right.
as well. It was
Great
a
to
pleasure.
talk to you,
Also, it was a
Avery.
pleasure to talk to you here and as table, neighbors
Yeah.
through the event.
Absolutely. Oh, actually, before we go,
Yeah,
tell me where people can find out about Ret-Con.
absolutely. So we do have a website. It is ret-con.org. So ret-con.org. We do also have a social media presence on Facebook,
Mhm.
on Twitter, and on Instagram. On Facebook, it should still just be Ret-Con with the dash.
Mhm.
On Twitter and Instagram, it is Ret-Con NC, all one word, no dashes. Both on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay. Awesome.
All right.
Very cool. Well, wonderful. Like I said, been looking forward to it.
Well, thank you again for taking the
Alright.
time to talk with me.
Hello, everyone. This is the Spaceman back here at ConGregate. I'm here with Mr. Oxmix.
Well, technically I put Oxmix on my name badge, but just call me Rich.
Okay, Rich, also known as Oxmix. Now, Rich, what brings you to ConGregate?
Well, board games was my hobby. It is my hobby, and I've been to some other cons, and I just enjoy. I really like the fact this has so much literary aspect to it, too, because I'm a big reader, and it's just fun to do. I'm actually strange for a con person because this is only my second con of where I wasn't doing primarily gaming.
Mm-hmm.
There is gaming here. I really like their gaming room, but I haven't seen much. This is not a convention about gaming. I've been to those conventions and I really love them. Let me give a shout out to Recon, which is a gaming convention I love going to.
Now, where is Recon located?
It's actually at a church called, I think it's called Recon Church, and it's in Kernersville. But it's really easy to get to, and it's a whole day full of gaming, and they do it for a charity.
So, Rich, how did you start gaming?
Okay, well, way back in the 90s, and that was a long time ago. But way back in the 90s, I was a Star Trek fan, and they had a Star Trek card game by Decipher. And it was one of those collectible games, like you've got your Magic the Gathering, you've got your Pokemon, they're just these huge things. And I developed a many thousand card collection, and I got into it that way. And then I took a big hiatus. I just really didn't have any other replacement game. I went off and did other things like college. And then I kind of got invited by a friend to a local game shop that did their game night. So,
Okay.
and then it just spiraled from there.
Now, do you play card games? Do you play board games? Do you play war games?
A little bit of all that. A little bit of all that. I'm more into board games, but a lot of board games are actually card games that look like board games, and board games look like card games. And that's actually the same thing with war games too. A lot of war games are visually indistinguishable from a card game. It almost makes a difference on how many hours it takes.
Right.
The 12-hour, 8-hour games are almost guaranteed to be a war game.
I have a friend of mine got me this gift one Christmas. It's one of the Arkham board games.
Arkham Horror, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's so complicated. We've never actually played it. So
Yeah, there's quite a few games that I've been involved in where I never get past the third turn.
right.
It's an 12 turn game, and I never get past the third turn.
Okay. That sounds it sounds all too familiar.
Mm. And here's the thing: when I say I never get past the third turn, that sounds like I'm complaining, but I'm not actually complaining. I really enjoy the experience.
Okay.
It's frustrating, but I enjoy the experience.
So do you have any plans for any gaming this weekend here at ConGregate?
That's the thing is, people don't know who are just watching this, but we just started ConGregate, and I haven't had time to poke my head into all the rooms. And they do have some board gaming going on, but I haven't actually looked in there yet. I think we're about 4 hours in.
Yeah, about 4 hours in. It's early.
Yeah, I had to come meet this guy.
Everybody wants to meet the Spaceman.
Yeah,
Well, Rich, thank you so much for
You're very
talking to
welcome.
me.
you're very
It's
welcome.
good to meet you, and I hope you have a great convention.